Nathan and the End of the Universe. Chapter 2. Interrupted Rivalry, Lives Planned, Future Changed. 2 weeks had passed since the crushing loss. The school buzzed with an air of determination as Nathan and his team hit the field. The coach barked commands, pushing the players to their limits. Nathan, his cropped hair damp with sweat, led drills with an intensity that left no doubt he was ready to redeem their honor. His sheer size made him a force to reckon with, but it was his focus and leadership that set the tone. Push harder. We're not losing again, Nathan's voice boomed as the team ran sprints. They mirrored his energy, their movements sharp and relentless. Meanwhile, across the station, Santa's team had their own preparations. Santo stood in the center of the field, his arms crossed, his towering figure exuding authority. His sharp, dark eyes scanned his teammates. "We don't just play to win," Santo growled, his voice low and commanding. "We dominate. No excuses." One of his players hesitated, adjusting his stance. Santo was on him in an instant. "You hesitate, you lose. You lose, we all pay. Get it together." The player nodded quickly, fear and respect in his eyes. Santa's word was law. His team didn't question him. They followed, no matter how harsh his methods. Back at Nathan's school, the cheer squad prepared their routines. Phoebe stood at the center, her Amazonian presence impossible to ignore. Her long hair flowed as she led her team through a series of precise, high-energy moves. "Keep it tight. We're not just performing, we're outshining them." Phoebe's voice carried authority, yet there was a spark of camaraderie that made her team trust her instinctively. The game finally arrived. The stands were packed, the energy electric. Nathan stood at midfield, his helmet under his arm, locking eyes with Santo across the field. Santo smirked, exuding a confidence that only fueled Nathan's determination. On the sidelines, the cheer teams engaged in an unofficial battle. Phoebe's team executed a perfectly synchronized routine, their cheers ringing clear and strong. Across the field, Santa's cheer team responded with equal ferocity, their routines sharp and challenging. The crowd loved it, and the rivalry intensified. But as the second quarter began, the stadium lights flickered. A loud, mechanical groan echoed through the air, followed by an automated voice booming across the field. "Emergency lockdown initiated. All personnel proceed to shelter immediately." Panic rippled through the crowd as the massive shutters began to close over the transparent dome of the space station. The starry backdrop disappeared, replaced by the cold, metallic gray of the shields. Players dropped their helmets, and fans scattered from the stands. Nathan turned to his team, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay calm. Stick together." Phoebe gathered her squad, her voice steady and firm. "Everyone, head to the shelters. Move." Santo, meanwhile, barked orders to his team with his characteristic authority. "You heard it. Get moving." As the field emptied, the tension hung in the air. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And whatever it was only the beginning. As the lockdown alarms blared across the station, chaos spread through the stadium. The players from both teams were herded into the locker rooms, their faces a mix of confusion and unease. The heavy metallic shutters had sealed every exit, leaving them trapped inside. Nathan's team sat tense on one side, with Phoebe and her cheer squad huddled nearby. Across the room, Santa's team lounged with an air of defiance. Santo leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his smirk cutting through the tension like a blade. "You think that was bad? Imagine how bad it'll be when we crush you again next game," Santo sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Nathan shot him a look but stayed quiet. His teammates, however, bristled. One of them, Jay, stood up. Big words for someone hiding behind a lockdown. That was all Santo needed. He straightened up and stepped forward, his team following his lead. "You want to say that again? Back up." Jay surged forward, but Nathan grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "Not now," he said firmly. His voice carried authority, but his eyes stayed locked on Santa's. "Listen to your captain," Santo taunted. "Not like he can stop what's coming anyway." Before things could escalate further, the coaches burst in. "Enough," Coach Daniels barked. "Sit down, all of you. Now." The players begrudgingly separated, the room falling into a tense silence. Nathan sat back, jaw tight, and glanced at Phoebe, who gave him a reassuring nod from across the room. Minutes later, Nathan's wrist communicator buzzed. He glanced down and saw a message from his mom. "Nathan, your father contacted me. He wants you to come straight home. Don't linger. Stay safe." The weight of her words sank into him as the lockdown dragged on. When the all clear finally sounded, Nathan hurried home. At home, the air was heavy. His mom sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Nathan hesitated at the door before stepping in. "I got your message," he said quietly. She looked up, her eyes filled with worry. Your dad thinks things are about to get worse. He said to keep you safe. Nathan sat across from her, the chair creaking under his weight. Mom, I can't just sit here while he's out there. If something's coming, I need to help. Her eyes searched his face. Nathan, I've already made up my mind, he interrupted gently. I'll enlist. I need to be out there, with him, protecting the station and the people we care about. Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded. You're so much like him, you know that. Nathan managed a small smile. I hope that's a good thing. Phoebe's house was unusually quiet when she walked in. Her mom, still in her work uniform, sat at the dining table with a data pad in hand. The faint hum of the hollow screen in the background filled the silence. Phoebe dropped her gym bag by the door and slumped into a chair across from her mom. Lockdown's over. They let us out. Her mom looked up, her sharp eyes studying Phoebe like she always did. Good. I was worried for a moment. She set the data pad down and leaned forward. How was practice? Phoebe shrugged. Same as usual. But, we had a little incident with Nathan's team and Santa's. Her mom raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. Instead, she shifted gears. Did you hear back yet about your enlistment? Phoebe tensed, avoiding her mom's gaze. Yeah. I got in. Her mom's face softened, a rare moment of pride breaking through her usually stern demeanor. That's good, Phoebe. This is the right path. You'll make a fine officer. Phoebe didn't share her mom's enthusiasm. I didn't do it for glory or ranks, Mom. I did it because you wouldn't stop pushing me. Her mom sat back, her expression hardening again. You're a natural leader. You'll see that someday. This isn't about me, Phoebe. It's about your potential. Phoebe clenched her jaw, the words biting at her. Maybe I wanted to figure that out for myself. Her mom sighed, shaking her head. You'll understand one day. This is bigger than you or me. It's about protecting our people. Phoebe pushed her chair back abruptly and stood up. I'll be in my room. Without waiting for a response, she grabbed her bag and stormed upstairs. Her thoughts a whirlwind of frustration and doubt. The small diner on the edge of the station bustled with the usual chatter of families and students, but at their corner booth, Nathan, Phoebe, and a few of their closest friends were wrapped in their own world. Plates of half-eaten fries and empty soda glasses sat scattered on the table, ignored as their conversation turned serious. So, 3 months until graduation, Nathan said, leaning back against the worn leather seat. Feels weird, doesn't it? Like, it snuck up on us. Phoebe nodded, poking at her drink with a straw. Yeah? No kidding. Feels like yesterday we were freaking out about the last game. Now it's just this waiting game. Jake, one of their teammates, chuckled. Speak for yourselves. I'm just ready to be done with school. Boot camp can't be harder than Coach Sanders' conditioning drills. Phoebe smirked. Don't count on it. I heard the instructors don't let up until you either cry or puke. Nathan snorted. You'd probably enjoy that, wouldn't you, Phoebe? Phoebe shrugged, her grin mischievous. I might. It's about time someone pushed us harder. Across the table, Sarah, one of Phoebe's cheer friends, piped up. Do your dates match up? When are you both heading to base? Phoebe glanced at Nathan. Mine's set. A week after graduation. Mom pulled some strings, so I'm going early. Nathan hesitated, his fork hovering over his plate. Mine's 2 weeks after. Mom wants me to stay home a little longer before I leave. 2 weeks. Jake whistled. That's enough time to change your mind. Nathan shot him a look. Not happening. I'm all in. Besides, I've got to catch up to Phoebe. Can't let her outdo me. Phoebe rolled her eyes but smiled. Good luck with that. For a moment, the table fell silent, the weight of their futures settling in. Sarah broke the tension with a sigh. I don't know how you guys do it. Enlisting, leaving everything behind, I couldn't. Nathan leaned forward, his voice steady. It's not about leaving. It's about protecting what we have. Phoebe nodded, her gaze distant, and making sure there's still something worth coming back to. The group exchanged quiet looks, the gravity of their choices unspoken but understood. Finally, Jake raised his glass. To graduation, boot camp, and whatever comes next. They clinked their glasses together, the moment a mix of hope, fear, and determination. The transport shuttle hummed to a halt, its hydraulic doors hissing as they opened to the harsh sunlight of the military base. Rows of recruits shuffled out, their steps hesitant, eyes darting to take in their surroundings. The towering barracks, the drill fields, and the imposing presence of soldiers barking orders painted a picture of what their new lives would be like. Nathan adjusted the strap on his duffel bag, his heart pounding as he stepped off the shuttle. He glanced at Phoebe, who walked beside him, her expression a mix of excitement and steely determination. Welcome to boot camp, Phoebe muttered, a smirk tugging at her lips. Nathan nodded, his throat dry. Yeah. Feels like a warm hug already. Before he could say more, A voice boomed across the courtyard. Line up. Move, move, move. A sergeant, his uniform crisp and his presence commanding, strode toward the group of recruits. His sharp eyes scanned them like a predator assessing its prey. Nathan and Phoebe quickly fell into place. Their duffel bags dropped at their feet. Around them, recruits scrambled to form straight lines, some bumping into each other, others looking utterly lost. The sergeant stopped in front of them, his boots thudding against the ground with precision. He stood silent for a moment, letting the tension build, before his voice cut through the air like a whip. Welcome to hell. I am Sergeant Kieran, and for the next 12 weeks, I am your worst nightmare. You will eat when I tell you to eat. You will sleep when I tell you to sleep. And you will breathe only when I say so. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, the recruits shouted in unison, though the lack of confidence in some voices was palpable. The sergeant's gaze narrowed, and he stepped closer, his eyes boring into the line. He stopped in front of a recruit who had spoken too softly. What was that, soldier? Are you whispering sweet nothings to me? The recruit stammered. No, sir. Then speak up. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir. The sergeant moved on, his sharp eyes sweeping over the rest of them. When he reached Nathan, he stopped, sizing him up. You've got the look of someone who thinks they're ready for this. Are you, recruit? Nathan squared his shoulders, meeting the sergeant's gaze. Yes, sir. The sergeant's lips twitched into a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. We'll see about that. He moved down the line, stopping next to Phoebe. His eyes flicked over her, noting her strong stance and steady gaze. And you, recruit, think you can keep up with the boys? Phoebe didn't flinch. No, sir. I plan to leave them in the dust. A low chuckle rippled through the recruits, quickly silenced by the sergeant's glare. He gave Phoebe a nod that almost resembled approval. Good. I like confidence. Don't disappoint me. When he reached the end of the line, Sergeant Kieran turned to address them all. From this moment on, you are no longer civilians. You are soldiers in training, and I will make sure you are ready for whatever this galaxy throws at you. Now pick up your bags and follow me. The recruits scrambled to obey, grabbing their duffel bags and marching after the sergeant as he led them toward the barracks. Nathan caught Phoebe's eye as they walked. She gave him a quick grin, and for the first time that day, he felt a flicker of reassurance. But as they reached the barracks, Nathan's reassurance was short-lived. Wait, Phoebe muttered, slowing her steps. Is that? Nathan turned to follow her gaze. Standing at the far end of the line of recruits was a tall, familiar figure, his posture as commanding as ever. Santa, Nathan whispered, disbelief washing over him. Phoebe's jaw dropped. What the hell is he doing here? Santo, dressed in the same recruit uniform as the rest of them, caught their stares. He gave them a sharp, self-assured nod, as if daring them to say something. Nathan shook his head, still processing the sight. Of all people, Santo had never once mentioned an interest in enlisting. Phoebe leaned closer to Nathan. Do you think he's here for the same reasons we are? I don't know, Nathan muttered, his eyes narrowing. But whatever his reasons, something tells me this just got a lot more complicated. The sergeant's voice barked another order, snapping them back to reality. They fell back into line, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that Santa's presence was no coincidence, and that their paths were about to collide in ways he hadn't anticipated.